Hello, everyone, and welcome to Eat to Treat. We are a nonprofit that aims to end health disparities, and I'm Dr. Amaris Williams. I'm with Eat to Treat, and we do live cook-along cooking demonstrations every first and third Saturday of every month, except December. So that's coming up. Um, First and third Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. And I post the ingredients ahead of time on eat-to-treat.org. And you can get the ingredients and join us in the kitchen every first and third Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern to make a delicious meal. Today we're making jambalaya, which is one of my favorite things to make. And let's just go ahead and get started. So let's change the camera angle here. Mouse out of the way. Okay. First thing is we have to make sure the wine is up to our standards. I've got this $6 bottle of wine from Aldi. It's a Pinot Grigio. And we got to do a little bit of quality control on the wine. Now you may think quality control does not take that much wine, but it takes a couple of sips at least to really get the good flavor of the wine. It's not horrible. Good for $6. All right. So, let's talk sausage. Sausage is full of fat and saturated fat, and it's not always made with the best quality cuts of meat. But you can get stuff that says 100% premium chicken or pork if that's what you're into, 50% less fat like this one. This is a chicken andouille sausage. I've got another chicken andouille. This one came from a regular grocery store here local to Ohio called Giant Eagle. This one came from Whole Foods. But they're both chicken andouille sausages, and that is what we're going for, is an andouille style sausage. You can also get a pork. This one is humanely raised pork with no fillers, no added hormones, no antibiotics ever. And so any kind of andouille sausage that you can find will work for this recipe. And andouille is just a very flavorful, not that spicy sausage, but you want something that's flavorful. You don't want a sweet Italian or something kind of bland. And this is relatively bland because sausage is always more flavorful than just plain meat, but it can be relatively bland if it's not andouille. So, the best quality andouille you can find, if you got a cousin out in the sticks who shoots his own deer and makes his own sausage, then you want to use that. If not, then go to the grocery store, find the best thing you can get. And then I'm just going to cut it up and start browning it in my pan. My pan, you'll notice, has a lid. I'm going to set the lid to the side. We're not going to use that until we put the rice in there. But what we want to do is start heating some grease. And by grease, I mean olive oil. We're not, this is not a lard type of endeavor here. That's about a tablespoon of olive oil. And I'm going to start heating it. One of the reasons why this is one of my favorite recipes is because it's a one-pot dish. It does take a few ingredients, but the end product is definitely worth the effort. So just cut your sausage up into pieces that you wouldn't mind putting in your mouth. So they shouldn't be too big. This is not a fork and a knife type of dish. This is a spoon or a fork and shovel it in kind of dish. So that's just, how you eat the food is what you want to keep in mind as you cut the pieces of vegetable and meat and everything else that you're putting in the pan. And you'll notice that I've got this little cutting board on top of my big cutting board. This little cutting board is my meat cutting board. I'm going to cut the chicken on here as well. The shrimp don't need cutting, but if I were cutting the shrimp, I would cut it on this cutting board. And that's because I don't want to cross-contaminate my food. Now, once you get your sausage in there and it's sizzling and going, stir it around so the oil gets spread around the pan, but then just let it be. Let it sit so that it browns. We're trying to get this to brown, and we're trying to get it stuck a little bit to the bottom of the pan. And you'll notice that instead of my regular orange spoon, I have this wooden spatula looking thing. And that's because this is great for scraping the bottom of the pan to get the burnt on stuff off. And so that's what we're going to do, is we're going to get some burnt on stuff on the bottom of the pan, which is called the fond. Then we're going to use our wine, not just to lubricate ourselves, but to lubricate the stuff that's stuck on the bottom of the pan and get it up. And that helps dissolve the flavor back into the sauce, and increases the flavor of the whole dish. So the next thing is to go ahead and grab your chicken. I've got chicken thighs, but any boneless, skinless chicken that you have can work. And I'm just going to cut it into bite-sized pieces. There's no special science to this. You can look at the grain of the chicken thigh or chicken breast, especially if you're using breast. I would look at the grain of the chicken breast and cut across it. So if the grain is going like this, then you would cut with your knife like this. So that's what I mean by across the grain. And that just makes tenderer pieces, but it's not necessary. It's not 100% critical. Because we're not cooking this enough to dry it out, really. It's going to be cooked in liquid, so it shouldn't get too dry and tough and chewy. But that's why I like to use chicken thighs, because it's really hard to get chicken thighs to be dry and tough and chewy. Alright, so I'm just cutting my chicken thighs one direction and then another direction, which basically means I am cutting against the grain on at least one of these directions. I'm going to see if my sausage is burned on the bottom yet. A little bit. Some of them are. Some of them are stuck. So we're just going to get all sides browned. And then we're going to throw the chicken in there and brown that too. And you'll notice that I have my left hand that's not holding the knife in kind of a claw formation over here. And that's just to keep my fingers out of the way of the blade, because I'd like to keep all parts of me attached to the rest of me. Personal preference there. Last chicken thigh. I've got 4 small, little tiny baby thighs today. So that's it's about a pound of chicken meat. Alright, so now my chicken is cut up. I'm going to wipe down my hands and my knife to get the chicken off. It's not better. A better practice would be to actually wash the board and the knife with soap, but because I'm not actually in a kitchen right now, can't do that. But I'm doing the best I can with what I have. And it's not super critical because all the vegetables that we're going to be cutting today are going to be cooked. We're not going to eat them raw. We're going to put them in this pan and cook them. So, alright. Starting to get some nice spawn on the bottom of the pan. I don't know if you can see that. But go ahead and cook your chicken in your sausage grease. Continue to brown your sausage. Got a lot of unbrowned sides still in my pan. Alright, the next step, after you have a little wine, is to move your meat board out of the way. And go ahead and let's do the onion first. It doesn't really matter which vegetable you do first, but I'm going to do my onion first. So I'm just going to cut the stem off so I have a little bit of a flat surface, and then cut through the root and cut it in half. And then I'm just going to slice it. I'm not going to dice it or anything. I'm perfectly fine with strands of onion in my jambalaya, but if you want small pieces of onion, then definitely go ahead and dice it. And the other half the same way. Okay, and now I'm just going to put that in there and continue browning everything. Some recipes have you take the meat out when you add the vegetables. I just turned mine up from a 5 to a 5.5. You don't have to. I tested this out with removing the vegetables, and it works fine, but you can also just brown everything together. There's no reason why you can't do that. If your pan is up high enough, then your vegetables won't cause your meat to steam. It'll all just saute and brown at the same time. Alright, next up is my 4 stalks of celery, which I have washed already, but I did not cut the leaves off. So first I'm just going to break the leaves off, because we don't want leaves in there. Leaves are good for if we were making chicken stock. That would be great. Great flavor, but they kind of break down if you cook them in a jambalaya. It's not the best, most appetizing view. So now I've got my celery. I'm just going to cut the tips off and throw that away. And then now I'm ready to slice my celery. And I'm not too picky about the size of the celery. I do want them relatively small because I don't want crunchy pieces of celery in my jambalaya, but it doesn't have to be, they don't have to all be exactly the same, because that's important if you were putting it in the oven and roasting it, because then you would want everything to cook at the same rate. But if you're just gonna boil it, it doesn't have to be exactly the same size. And I'm gonna stop before I get to the white part of the celery and just call it a day there. And then go ahead and throw this in the pan. And the more cold or room temperature stuff I put in this pan, the higher I'm going to turn my heat up. I'm at 6.5 now, and that's just so I can keep the stuff browning. I want stuff to brown. And I don't want it to boil, I don't want it to steam, I want it to brown. So I think I might need it even higher than that. Uh-oh. Alright, I'm at 7 out of 10. Next up is the carrots. These don't have to be peeled if you wash them well, but I'm going to go ahead and peel mine. So these three vegetables, the onions, the carrots, and the celery, in French they call it mirepoix. And this is like the standard three vegetables that you put in any kind of soup or stew or stock or broth. But Creole people in New Orleans and other places where they make jambalaya call it Trinity. And that is a little bit of culture for you. I think I'm only going to use 3 of these carrots because they're kind of large. But, yeah, I learned that on Reddit. Reddit does have its uses. And then I also learned, which I didn't know, that there's 2, or at least 2 types of jambalaya. There's a brown jambalaya and a red jambalaya. What we're making today is a red jambalaya because it involves tomatoes. But not all jambalaya has tomatoes in it. And you can end up with a tomato-less jambalaya, which I had never had before. I prefer it with tomatoes, in my opinion, but that's just me. If you don't use tomatoes, then definitely have more vegetables on the side. And if you do use tomatoes, you can still have more vegetables on the side. Alright, so I got big chunks of carrots here, because unlike celery, I don't mind crunching on a piece of carrot. But this is completely up to you what size you cut your carrots. Just make sure that you're cutting carrots and not fingers. I'm going to go ahead and throw these in there. I have a question in the chat. Colors equals flavor, and yes, color equals flavor. So that is why we are purposefully browning our sausage, our vegetables. We want everything brown so that it puts a kind of smoky, well, the andouille sausage is going to have a little bit of smoky flavor to it, but the browning is going to give us a caramelized flavor. And that is what we're going for here. So I can see a little bit of brown on my sausage, on my chicken. The onion is starting to brown. It's not quite there yet, but we're getting close. The next thing that'll help with the browning process is to throw some spices in there. And I'm going to put about a teaspoon of cayenne in mine. That's not going to make it super spicy. It will make you notice it though. You guys can put as much or as little cayenne in there as you so choose. But I think jambalaya, you should notice the cayenne. Alright, so about a teaspoon of cayenne and then about a tablespoon of garlic powder. Normally I use garlic paste, but most authentic jambalaya calls for garlic powder. So about a tablespoon of that. And then we can stir that in. I'm going to add a little bit more oil to my pan. So I added about another tablespoon of oil. And let's give this a good stir. Excuse me. I don't know why, but every time I cook with garlic powder, I start sneezing. But I can cook with garlic and garlic paste just fine. Alright. We're almost ready to add the wine and start deglazing the pan. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot 2 vegetables. The bell peppers. Definitely want bell peppers in there. Those add a nice flavor, authentic flavor. I got the ugliest green bell pepper in the store and a nice red bell pepper. You can choose any colors that you like. I wanted 2 different colors to add color to my dish. So it's all personal preference. And as you can see there, I cut around the outside of the bell pepper and left most of the seeds inside and then threw the inside away. And I'll show you again on the red bell pepper. So all I'm doing is cutting around the sides like this, cut the side off, then turn it, cut the side off, cut the side off, cut the side off. So again, just slice down, cutting the sides off, leaving the seeds which are in the middle. Alright, and that's the middle with the seeds, and I just go ahead and throw that away. And I'm just going to slice the bell pepper, and I don't want the slices this long, so I'm just going to cut the slices in half and then toss them in the pot. For the record, we have not put the shrimp in. The shrimp goes in last. The shrimp will go in after this demo is over. What we're going to do is add the rice and the stock and the wine to the pot, pan, whatever it is, and then put the lid on and cook the rice until it's done. Once the rice is done, then you add the shrimp and stir it in and let it cook for 5 minutes on low heat until the shrimp is done, and then you serve it. So, very simple, but I'll explain it again at the end. Alright, last little piece. Perfect. And I've got plenty of fond at the bottom of my pan now, from the garlic powder, from the sausage, from the vegetables, from the chicken. Okay, so now, time to deglaze. I'm going to add, well, probably to my pan, I probably need more than a half a cup of wine. I'm not sure what I put in the recipe, but anywhere between a half a cup to a full cup of wine, go ahead and add that. And it really just depends on how big your pan is and how much you've got stuck to the bottom of it. I'm not going to season the shrimp separately before I put it in the pan. I'm just going to put it in the pan. By the time the shrimp is ready to go in there, the pan is going to have so much flavor in it that the shrimp is not going to need its own flavor. But if you want to add lemon juice or something without salt, like more cayenne and more garlic powder to your shrimp before adding it to the pan, you're more than welcome to do so. But you won't need to add more salt. I would wait on the salt until everything is done and taste it right before you serve it before adding more salt. Because we are going to add a little bit of salt when we add the rice and the chicken broth. Because if you don't add salt at that stage, the rice comes out bland and it's kind of hard to correct. Like, you would add more salt at the end to try to correct the bland rice than if you had just added salt at the beginning. So just a little heads up on that. Alright, so you can see that I poured my wine in, and now I'm scraping the bottom of my pan with my wooden, flat wooden spatula here. And all the fond is coming up and is dissolving into the wine, which is what we want. I don't know what the a bit unusual refers to, but yeah, that's a good explanation of everything that I do. So okay, so I'm gonna reduce the wine a little bit. I'm gonna let it cook down until most of it is evaporated. That's what reduce means. And in the meantime, I'm gonna open up this can of crushed tomatoes. Now, this can is not a low sodium or a salt-free crushed tomato. Let's see how much sodium it has in it. 140 milligrams per quarter cup, and there's 13 quarter cup servings in this can. So there's a lot of sodium in this can. 13 times 140, I'm not sure how much that is off the top of my head, but it's a lot. So we don't need to add that much salt when we add the rice, because we're going to be adding the tomatoes and the rice and the stock at the same time. So keep in mind that if you're using a crushed tomato can with salt in it, that just be light on the salt when you flavor the rice. Okay. Alrighty. So this does look really good. It smells even better. The wine, the cayenne, the garlic powder, the sausage. The vegetables, of course, also smell good, but the other stuff really has most of the smell and the flavor. Alright. So now, let's measure out the rice. And I'm in a pan this size, I'm using 1.5 cups of dry rice. So I got a half cup measure. I'm going to use 3 of these in there. And then twice that of chicken broth. So if you're using a smaller pan or less vegetables, less chicken, less sausage, then you would use less rice. But for this size dish with this many vegetables, I'm using 1.5 cups of rice and 3 cups of chicken broth. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken broth. So that's 6 of these half cup measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. And normally when I'm cooking on these, on this channel, I don't usually measure stuff, but when it comes to rice and brown rice and getting it cooked well and not chewy and crunchy, then it helps to have twice as much liquid. Exactly. Because in this dish, you're not going to have extra liquid to be able to pour off. So put your twice as much liquid in there. Okay. So that's 6. So 3 cups of broth, and I forgot to say, but I'm using a no salt added broth. So my tomatoes have salt, but my broth does not. And then I'm putting in my tomatoes. And this tomatoes is going to make it a red jambalaya as opposed to a brown jambalaya. And I think red is better than brown. Don't at me. I don't really know what that means, but I see it all the time. Okay. And that's basically it. What we're going to do is bring this to a boil, then reduce it to a simmer, and then put the top on. Oh, we got to put salt in there. I'm sorry. So if you're using a low sodium or a regular sodium chicken broth, then I would not add salt, especially if you're using a regular sodium chicken broth. But because I'm using a no salt added chicken broth, I am going to put maybe about a half a teaspoon of salt in there, and that's just to keep the rice from getting bland. And then at the end, I will correct the salt and add maybe a touch more, maybe more garlic powder, maybe more cayenne. It really just depends on how it's tasting. And then sometimes you think that it needs something, you don't know quite what it is that it needs. Then I would suggest try at the very end a squeeze of lemon juice and see if that corrects the flavor the way you think it needs to be corrected. But that's it. I got another question. Yeah, definitely make this one. I made this Saturday in this pan, this much. Like, let me just change well, I'll pull this off so you can see. This is a lot. This is a huge pan. Let me just put my hand over here so you can see. It's quite a large pan. I made a whole pan of this on Saturday. It was gone by Wednesday. I ate it like twice a day for 5 days. It's very good. So again, this is it for the demo. The last step is to get this shrimp and put it in there, and that is at the end. So this is, well, mine, I took it off and turned it off and took it off the heat, so it's not quite boiling yet. But once it gets to the simmer, then just put the top on like this. And then if it's boiling too vigorously after you put the top on, then turn the heat down. So monitor it for about 5 minutes after you put the top on, and then just turn the heat down if necessary. And then come back when the rice is done. And that will depend on what type of rice you use. If you use wild rice, it's going to take longer than if you use what I use, which was a jasmine brown rice. Jasmine brown rice. This doesn't take that long to cook. And again, once the rice is done, then you add your shrimp, your thawed shrimp, and you cook it on low for 5 to 6 minutes until the shrimp is done. And then you serve it. Then it's ready to eat. Except it'll be hot, but you know what I mean. Like, put it in a bowl, let it cool, then eat it. All right, let me change the camera angle. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick outro so that you guys can get to cooking and finish your meal. And so today we made jambalaya, which is a blood pressure friendly meal, and it's gonna be delicious. I hope that you make it, and I hope you enjoy it. Again, December we're not gonna have demos, so we're gonna have one more demo this month, and then the month of December there's no more demos. And then next year in January, I'm probably going to move to a all pre-recorded model. So I probably won't be doing live things anymore. I'll probably pre-record recipes and demos, and I'll probably do it once a month and not twice a month. So that I think will improve the quality. So we'll have better recipes, better food, and also you won't have to hear me say 50 million times because it'll be pre-recorded, and I'll probably do a voiceover or something like that. So, all right. Thanks for listening to me talk. Enjoy your wine. Enjoy your jambalaya. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.